Hey guys, Joshy here, BJ on Game Day, back for another episode. And this episode is for all of our newbies, all of our rookies, beginners out there, whatever you want to call them. This is basically us running through how Supercoach works, how to get into the game, and maybe some strategies, tips, and pointers along the way. So, guys, definitely a video aimed at your newer players, but your seasoned players might be able to take a tip or two out of this one as well. Just remember, guys, BJ on Game Day group code just up the top there, 218-667. Jump onto Supercoach, join our group, and follow all the content from BJ on Game Day. Guys, Supercoach, this is probably about my 6th or 7th year playing Supercoach. I've had a couple of top 500s, generally in that sort of top 2,000 to 3,000 on a bad year. So look, I guess 130,000 players. It's something I'm addicted to, and a lot of the other guys who are on these Facebook pages are too. So let's just run through some of the things about Supercoach, how it all works. You've basically got two different types of game within Supercoach. You've got Classic and you've got Draft. Now, we're just going to concentrate on the Classic with this video. Brent and I, we will touch on the Draft a little bit in one of our later videos. But for now, we'll just worry about the Classic. Now, when you do sign up for a team in Supercoach, they will put you into a public league, and then you've got the chance to join in a few private leagues as well. Now, we will have a couple of BJ and the Game Day private leagues too, and we can get you into those. It will be a first-in, best-dressed case scenario, so make sure to watch out all the videos because at some stage we will start putting those league codes in there. But once you've joined a league, there's a couple of different ways you can look at it. Now, you can look at Supercoach Classic from an overall points point of view, or you can look at a head-to-head point of view. Now, both have a little bit of a different, I guess, tactic with how you play both those games. Head-to-head players, look, it's really something that's just in your league. You know, you're looking at who you're versing every week. You may change your players based on that. You may not. Whereas overall, you're not really worried about losing a few head-to-head matches because you're really chasing those overall points. Now, for any newbies out there, you may see on the Facebook pages there'll be people signing up for, I guess, for money leagues and things like that. Not compulsory at all. These are just guys who obviously love their Supercoach and they've got plenty of mates or I guess other people from the Facebook pages that want to jump on and add a little bit of money risk to the event. So some of those pages might actually, some of those groups might pay on overall and on head-to-head. With your Supercoach, now you've got a salary cap. Now, 9.8 million is the salary cap for 2020. It is up from last year. Last year was 9.6. Now, when you create your team, you'll see on the screen there that we've got the team selector, which is on the web-based design. Now, 25 players is what you've got to select, and that $9.8 million is how much you've got to spend. Now, on the right-hand side, you'll see some of the players, and they're basically in order of pricing. These are players, these are the front rowers on the right-hand side, and you'll see their name, you'll see their team, and then how much they cost. Now, this cost is based on their performances from last year, an average of last year. And as you can see at the top there, Payne Haas at just over 700,000, had a great year last year, proved himself to be one of the best players in Supercoach. His work rate for the Broncos was absolutely phenomenal. So with your 25 players there, you've got to pick two hookers. Now, you'll have a starting hooker and you'll have a bench hooker. Much like your starting squad in NRL, you'll have 13 players on your starting squad and your extended 12-man bench to make up your squad of 25. Come actual scoring weeks with Supercoach, though, you'll be made up of that starting 13 and the standard 4-man reserve, which you will pick out of your 12 bench spots. So you've got two hookers.
I'll have two number 9s.
You've got 4 front row forwards to pick. You've got 6 second row forwards to pick. You've got 2 halfbacks.
A number 7.
2 5/8s.
A number 6 with extra dip.
Now, the centre wing position is a little bit harder. You've got 7 of those, but they also tend to be probably your lowest scoring players in your team. And then you've also got your fullback roles.
And a large soap.
Guys, what we've seen in Supercoach over the years is probably the most important position to fill up is your second row forwards. Consistently, since Supercoach started, your second row forwards are the ones that are going to score and average the most points throughout the season. These are the guys that are going to get a lot of tackles in the games. They're going to make sort of 30, 40, 50 tackles. They're going to make a line break here or there. They're going to, make plenty of hit-ups, plenty of tackle busts, and hopefully you can get a try here or there as well. So these are the guys, your Jason Taumalolos, your Jake Trbojevic, Cam Murray, players like that have really established themselves in that sort of 70-plus average, and definitely one that you want to sort of concentrate on. I guess the big thing about when you're picking your team, especially this early in the season, is 9.8 million doesn't go too far across 25 players. So you really have to have a good balance. And that balance actually leads me into talking about the strategy and how to basically play the game from week one. Now, there's a couple of different strategies you can use when playing Supercoach. You can look at mid-range players, or you can look at a guns and cheapies kind of tactic. So guns and cheapies tactic is basically where you stack up with a bunch of guns that you're never going to change. You're never going to have to, you're basically going to do what's called set and forget. These are the guys that are just going to stay in your team from round one, and barring a season-ending injury, you really won't trade them out. Then you're going to have the rest of your team made up of cheapies. Chip, 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 chip. So that you can stay under that $9.8 million salary cap. And these cheapies are the ones that are going to earn you money. Now, ideally, a cheapie you want starting in a starting spot. Now, we've already pointed out in previous videos, it's a little bit hard this year to see where those cheapies are going to come from. But come round one, there's always a few that pop up. There'll be 4 or 5. They'll be priced between 170 and 200,000, and these are the guys that will allow you to stay under that 9.8 million, and they'll make you plenty of money over the first sort of 6 to 8 weeks. Then what happens is when you start making money out of them, that's when you trade up. You use your trades. Now, you get 37 trades per year. Now, 37 trades, if you use the maximum allowed every week, does not get you to the end of the season. So you've really got to be, conservative with your trades. You've got to be a little bit cautious that you don't go and burn those trades. Now, me personally, I've always been not so much a rage trader, but definitely addicted to trading. I love trading players, getting in new players, getting in form players, things like that. So we'll go through a few rules around trading a little bit later. It's definitely something you look at, is turning your cash, is making cash. That's the big thing, is 9.8 million at the end of the season is not enough to have a good Supercoach team. By the end of the season, once your players start building up money, you really want to have about that $13 to $14 million, team value. And that really means that you'll have a really good team on paper and competitive to finish in that top 1,000 or top 5,000 come the end of the season. Even better still, hopefully in that top 100. Obviously, Charlie White, one of our guys from 2019, he had a fantastic season last year. He led us all season, the Bunnings Snags, and he was absolutely brilliant. So there's going to be plenty of team suggestions. We've got all of our team previews coming up over the next couple of weeks before the season starts. So make sure to keep an eye out for those ones. Guys, so basically with your team selection, with your mid-ranges. Now, if you look at the mid-range, this is a little bit more of a risky, and it's probably proved to not be as fruitful as the guns and cheapies route. Your mid-range players are those guys basically priced sort of between about 300 and 500, 550,000. Now, if you tend to move away from the cheaper options between the 170 and 300, you'll find yourself not being able to fit in as many guns. So you may sacrifice some point scoring abilities. Now, the one thing I want to point out based on Supercoach for any newbies out there or beginners is that just because you're a good player in the NRL does not mean that you're a good player in Supercoach. There are plenty of players out there who are considered guns at NRL levels. Look, these guys are basically, first grade players all day long. They're going to be in the starting 13 for the whole season, but they just won't find many points in Supercoach. They basically contribute to the team in a completely different way. So you've really got to keep an eye out for players, and I guess players that people sort of recommend, or trap players that people recommend to stay away from, and other players that people recommend to pick up. There can be some players that are brilliant at Supercoach that aren't as dominant in, the NRL. And these are guys with high points per minute capabilities, and you just hope that they get high points per minute I guess, high minutes on the field for for NRL. Now, points per minute is a term that we use, basically designed how many your average your points are per minute that you're on the field. So really anything above 1 point per minute is a fantastic stat. With the point scoring, now we'll just jump over to the point scoring screen. This is probably the key. Now, the objective of Supercoach is to score the most amount of points. Now, whether that's in head-to-head or whether that's in overall, your overall point scoring is what's going to get you further and further up the ladder. Now, as you can see here, your point scoring, the big thing is to score tries. Now, 17 points to score a try. Now, what you'll notice here, though, is it's the little things that really count to your overall point scoring for a player. Players really don't score more than 1, maybe 2 tries in a game. When you get those players that score sort of 4 or 5 tries in a game, and it's happened plenty of times, they'll have a huge, massive score. You know, they'll score 140, 150 points, but the next week they'll go back to scoring their sort of 30 or 40. So tries definitely aren't everything, and that's why we talk about the second row forwards being such great players in Supercoach, is because it's little things like your hit-ups, your tackles, your line breaks and things like that, that I guess you get on the edges, which is what the second row forwards will do. These are guys that don't miss many tackles. They offload the ball, and as you can see down the bottom there, effective offloads and ineffective offloads. The difference is there. Basically, an effective offload is anything that is caught by another of your teammates, and the play progresses from there. An ineffective offload is anything that's offloaded, but the play doesn't progress any further. They just get tackled straight away. You've got things like line breaks and line breaks assists. And basically, you've got negative points as well. So a lot of people look at players that are goal kickers, because as you can see there, you get 4 points for a goal kick. You only lose 2 points for a missed goal. Now, with most of the goal kickers in the NRL being about sort of 70 to 80% success rate, that's a place where you can make up plenty of points. You obviously don't see too many field goals kicked, but it's nice. And the same thing with 40-20s. Now, obviously, 20-40s will be added to that as well for Supercoach with that rule coming in. Brent and I discussed that in a previous video. We're both not a fan, purely because it really gives the attacking team that are stuck in their own half a chance to get out and get another set of 6. A couple of things that changed over the year were things like kicks that go dead in goal. You lose points for that. And holding up a player in goal and saving a try. Intercepts now get points as well. So there are a couple of things we've seen evolve over the last couple of seasons. Couple of things that you're going to run into along the way. Now, price changes. Players change pricing due to how they perform week in, week out. Now, for any newbies out there, over the first 3 weeks, there are no price changes. All prices for players are frozen. They are kept on hold. But based on their first 3 weeks is how those prices will change in round 4. So this is a really, really good one. I'm a true believer in using your trades in the first 3 weeks. You want to put yourself in the best possible position come round 4 to get the maximum amount of value rise in your team as you can. It really starts you off in good stead. So you may see a cheapie that is priced at 170 or 200,000. And they will average sort of 40 or 45. They might throw in an 80 or something in the first 3 rounds. These guys are going to have huge pay rises there. So you really want to concentrate on those price rises. You also want to have a look for players in form or out of form. Now, there's a couple of rules and commandments that we'll go through with regards to Supercoach. But basically, if a player's out of form, you can sort of see it. And, there were players in the last couple of years, players like your Cohen Hesses, your Lachlan Fitzgibbons, that had performed awesomely and then just had a couple of, bad seasons after that. So, Anthony Milford's another one. Brilliant player once upon a time, but it's really, really hard to follow him. And these are players that we may sort of miss out on purely just due to, obviously, taking those guys out based on their form. With a couple of other things. Now, buy planning. Buy planning is a big one. In the NRL, we have 2 buy rounds, round 12 and round 16. Again, this is something that changed a couple of seasons ago. Buy rounds are a key in Supercoach. They are a place where you can make plenty of points and make up plenty of spots on the overall ladder. Now, for me personally, there are two things that I look at very, very big throughout the season. Last year, I managed to score over 1,000 points in both bye rounds, and I jumped up thousands and thousands of spot up the ladder. Now, unfortunately, with my strategy last year, it didn't work out because by about round 21, I had used up all my trades, and I found myself dropping out of the top 1,000. I got up to, I think, about probably 500 or 600th last season, but dropped down to about 2,500 to finish the year, purely because I ran out of trades and I couldn't bring in a few guns towards the end of the season. So that goes back to obviously trades, managing those, and knowing exactly how many you've got as the season goes on. Couple of other things. Now, there's a couple of sites that I just want to throw out there. These are sites that I use, obviously, other than Supercoach. One of them is NRL Supercoach Stats.com. We'll chuck up the link for that and we'll put it in the description. Basically, with your Supercoach, this just gives you a whole new level of stats. If you really find yourself getting into Supercoach and loving the game, this is a place where you can go to get even more in-depth stats. We talk about points per minute. You can look at people's break-evens. Now, break-evens are a term that's going to come around. This is actually the term that a player needs, I guess the amount of points a player needs where their score, where their price next week will actually go up or down. Now, if they don't score above their break-even, they will go down. If they score above their break-even, they will go up. Now, depending on how many points below or above is how much they will go down. Each point above or below basically equates to about $1,000 or just under $1,000. So if a player has a break even of 70 and they score 30, you can expect their price to go down around about that sort of $38,000 to $40,000 the next week. So that's one. The other one is NRL Physio. Now, this is a guy who's on a lot of the social media sites, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. His background obviously is a physio, and he's really got a great love of the game. If you want to keep updated on player injuries or anything like that, because player injuries are really going to determine who you trade in and out as well, not just form and not just pricing. So possibly jump onto his website, give him a like and a follow, because he's fantastic to have a look at. One of just the little things, look, a few rules and commandments now. I've got 6 of them in total. I couldn't find 12 commandments. Or is it 10? 10 commandments? It's 10. It's 10. All right, so it's not 12, it's 10. But I've found 6. First of all, anyone looking, projected scores mean absolutely shit. Guys and girls, you'll actually see on the Supercoach pages in the team selector, there's some icons that will come up with the projected score. Week in, week out, once you pick a player, it'll have that projected score. Now, it is based on data, but it's a very, very small sample size. It's based on the data from the players' past performances against that particular team, and maybe the past week or two of what their performances are. Look, it really doesn't mean anything. You'll see on a few Facebook sites and things like that, people will be, what's your projected score and that? It really doesn't mean anything. So that's one of our commandments. The second one is probably the biggest one in Supercoach. I probably should have led with this, but it is never trade a gun. When you start off the season, you're going to pick a few guns. There's going to be some of the best players in your team. Your players like your James Tedesco's, your Jason Tamalolo's, Damien Cook's, Cameron Smith's, Tommy Trbojevic. Now, the only reason you would ever find yourself having to trade a gun is a long-term or a season-ending injury. They take up a lot of money. So if you're going to miss them for more than probably 6 or 8 weeks, possibly 4 weeks, you may find yourself trading them out and trying to get them back in at the end of the season. The reason you don't trade out a gun is purely because of this. They are guns. It doesn't get much more simpler than that. These are the guys who have proven themselves in Supercoach to be the best players. The scoring system that we put up before, these guys have the games that are most, connected to those scoring systems and getting the best out of it. So players like your James Tedesco's, your Tommy Trbojevich's, their try assists, their line break assists, their tries, line breaks, tackle bust. Everything that they do in this game is great for Supercoach. So these are guys, once you've got them in the team, if they throw up a couple of poor performances, if for 3 weeks in a row they score 20 or 30 or 40, if they don't meet their average, if you don't see above average performances, do not trade them out, all right? These are guns, and that is their status because they are the best. You can get what's called a broken gun, which is where they go off. So they may lose form over an even longer period, and sometimes you got to make the tough decision to cut them, but it can absolutely burn you because they can come back and perform out of their skin. So definitely one of the commandments. That probably leads into another one, and that is don't rage trade. Now, rage trading is probably the same thing where you don't want to trade a gun, but it probably goes a little bit further to mid-ranges and have a little bit of faith in what the team is that you've selected. Now, trust your instincts, trust your gut instincts. Don't rage trade a player out. At the same stage, don't rage trade, conserve your trades. We spoke about they will not last you to the end of the season. So you've really got to conserve those. One thing we haven't spoken about yet, and I'll just touch on it with regards to trading, is in the middle of the season, there is a super trade round. Most weeks you will get, all weeks you will get 2 trades, and you'll get 2 trades only. Trades do not carry over in that if you don't use one this week, you get 3 next week. You will only ever get a max of 2 trades, 37 for the season. But there is a super trade round in the middle of the season where you will get 5. Now, this is a huge trade week. This is actually where you can prepare for buy planning, for Origin period. Origin is a huge detriment to Supercoaches because a player will miss certain weeks because they're playing Origin. So, look, guys, don't rage trade. Don't burn your trades. Definitely something to watch out for. Now, one of mine that I've got is pick healthy players. Now, this is probably a big one that I've done over the last couple of seasons, and I really attribute it to probably me finishing higher than I ever thought I would on the ladder, is picking healthy players. If you look at 2 players and you think these guys are similar, they've got good averages, they've got good points per minute, they're a similar sort of style of play, pick the healthier one. Pick the player who has less history of injuries. You look at players like, I guess your Wade Grahams of late. Tommy Turbo had a bad year with injury last year. Jake Friend, things like that. Cameron Smith's one who never seems to be injured. He seems to play all the time. He's just got such a durable body. His endurance and his health is absolutely fantastic. He's a player you can pick that you know that he'll always turn up. Now, the older his body gets, you can never be guaranteed of this, but he has proven that in Supercoach throughout the history. Another one I've got here, and it's probably linked in with rage trading, is never chase points. Now, this is another commandment. This is a big one. You will find players that will ton up. You will find players that will have career weeks where they score 3 or 4 tries, or whether they score 3 or 4 line breaks or something like this. They will score 110, 120, 130 points, which in Supercoach is a fantastic score. Then they will follow it up the next 5 weeks with a 15, an 18, a 27, a 12, and a 31. Do not chase points. Never chase what a player has done the week before. If they do not have a history of scoring big consistently, then it is just an anomaly. It is one of those things. A couple of players in past seasons, things like Joel Thompson, he seems to start the season off really good, and then he goes disappearing. There's games where he scored 2 or 3 tries, scored 120, 140 points. David Fusatua had a great season a couple of years back then, but then I think in 2018, 2019 really dropped off the map. He's one that will throw in 100, 120 here or there, and then he will drop back to some absolute terrible scores. The final commandment, number 6, is scoring updates will fuck you at some time of the season. Now, guys and girls, newbies, what happens is as a game is being run live, at some point, at all points, look, games are run live. Games are scored on a live basis. Unfortunately, because of the pace of the game, it is very, very hard to get those exact scores. and every game will have two different review sessions by the Supercoach scorers. Now, this is done under Fox Sports scoring system for like things like hit-ups and tackles and such. So that's where they'll base them off. But there are a couple of other ones there that are a little bit more subjective with regards to, I guess, your try contributions, what contribute to a try, your try assists, and things like that. So after a game, within a couple of hours or the next day, they will review a game and you'll see scoring changes. You may see your player move from 80 down to 72 based on those scoring reviews. There will then be a final review, and that will come on the Monday after all games are played. Lockout happens after every game where you can't change players, and then lockout will happen basically after the round is finished until it reopens at around about 2 o'clock Eastern time on the Monday. Now, final reviews will probably usually come in at about 11 or 12 o'clock on a Monday morning. You may see your player that's gone from 80 to 72. It may go up to 95. It may go down to 65. Scoring reviews happen. Scoring updates will absolutely fuck you. They will frustrate you. They will infuriate you. And you will be up by 30 points in a head-to-head game. And if you're a head-to-head player, it will frustrate you even more because then you will have automatically lost the game by 20 where you're up by 30. More commonly, the scoring won't be that big a swing. You might see some, 5 and 10 point swings. But at the end of the day, they do happen in Supercoach. They will absolutely annoy the heck out of you, but it is part of the game. Have your bitch on social media like everyone else does, and just move on with life because otherwise you're going to get a little bit too frustrated about the game. We all bitch and moan about it, but it is what it is. But guys, look, I might have missed one or two things there. Actually, now that I've just looked at my notepad there, a couple of the big things that I'll touch on before I go. Captain and vice captain. Every week when you pick your team, you'll be asked to pick a vice captain and you'll be asked to pick a captain. Now, with your captain player, you get double the amount of points that they score. So if they score 150, like a Tommy Turbo or a Tedesco Ken at times, you will get 300 points for that player. Okay. Now, if your captain is a late withdrawal, if your team is locked and everything's set and your captain doesn't play, you will get your vice captain score as a double point score. If you have a player that misses out, now you only get this for one player. If you have a player that you've got in your team that scores 0 points because they didn't start the game, the key is there that they didn't start the game or they didn't make it onto the field. If you have a player that scores 0 points, off your bench you will get a player that scores the least amount of points. So if you've got, apart from your 17, in your 8 reserve players, if you've got players that score 20 and 30 and 40, you will get the player that scores the least amount of points. They will come into your team for whoever scored 0. So you don't get nothing, but you get a little bit of a consolation. Now, to go further than that, guys, there is a thing called the captain's loop. Now, this took me a season or two to understand, and I never really utilized it, and I probably don't utilize it as much as I should for a seasoned player. But the captain's loop comes in rounds basically where you have your vice captain score a huge score, or it's really possible in your bye rounds where you've got less players or you don't have a full squad of 17. Come a bye round, it is really hard to have that full squad of 17. You'll probably have between about 12 and 15 players. Now, the reason I mentioned the captain's loop is it's sort of, I guess, it's a little cheat code when you're playing a video game. What you want to do is every week you want to have whoever's your vice captain play before your captain. All right. Now, what you want to do is if they play before your captain and they score a huge score. Now, to loop, during a normal round, I'd want to see probably 120 points plus. During a bye round where you don't have as many players, I'd probably want to see 80 points plus. So if you've got a vice captain, let's say you've got the vice captain on James Tedesco and he scores 135. What you will then do is you will drop a player out of your team to the bench. Okay, a player that hasn't played yet, you will drop your player to the bench. Okay, then you will bring in one of your players from your 8 outside the team that is not going to play. They cannot play. They cannot make the team. You bring them into your team and you make them captain. Okay, so what that means is, by default, instead of having your captain score double, you'll have James Tedesco, who scored 135 points in your vice captain. You'll get that double, and you'll get 270. Then what will happen is, for the player that you've brought in that scores 0, you will get the lowest score come in for your player off the bench. So if it's 7, if it's 20, if it's 60, whatever that lowest score is for the lowest player on your bench, that will get brought in. Remember, zeros do not count. Players who do not play do not count. So, guys, that's basically the captain's loop. See if you can make it work. But the key is always have your vice captain playing in a game before the captain's playing. So, vice captain plays on a Friday night, your captain plays on a Sunday. Really, you've got to watch out is if they're both in a Saturday game that's back-to-back, because you've probably got about 10 to 15 minutes to make that switch if you want to do it. It is really awkward if your vice captain scores 80 to 100 points, 80 to 110, because you're never too sure whether to loop or not. But it's one thing to have a look at. When you are also looking for your captain selection, make sure you look at who they're up against. Players generally play better against certain teams. As I say, that's where your projected scores come from, is a lot of their history beside a certain team. But there's plenty of times where I've followed a player's only scored 30 as my captain. So you will find that the guys who finish in your top 1,000 have generally had the better captain choices throughout the year. If you can average 65 to 70 with your captain, that will hold you in good stead. Last couple of years, I've averaged about 52, and it's really, really hurt me. But guys, that's about it. That's our newbie special. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. Any seasoned veterans who have logged on as well, you might have got one or two things out of that, but chances you already knew it all.
I just got a few questions, Joshy, because I should have been doing this video.
You're a newbie.
Everyone knows I'm the expert that just hides in the shadows. Like minor premier of two public leagues last year. So rage quitting.
Wait. Before you say that, minor premier of 2 public leagues.
Yeah.
I would like to say you should have thanked me and Brent, because without our input, you probably wouldn't have finished minor premiers. I was minor premier by yourself.
I was minor premier in 2 public leagues, but as was established in the first video of the season, third last in the BJ and GameDay.
Yes.
Rage trading. Just to expand on that a little bit, is that where one of your players performs shit one week and you get the shits and you get rid of him? Absolutely.
Basically, that's the gist of it. Now, rage trading can be about any player. It's really about going against your gut. You've put either a cheapie or a mid-ranger in because you thought they'd make money. They might have just had one bad week, and so then you've just sort of dumped them to another nuffy or another cheapie or mid-ranger that's going to do the same the next week. It goes a little bit further even still if, you're rage trading guns. Never trade a gun, and definitely never rage trade a gun.
Well, that leads into my second question. How many of your commandments will you break consistently throughout the whole season?
I'm always going to blow up at scoring updates. I'll always blow up at scoring updates. I'll have a bitch of those. Look, I'll rage... See, for me, rage trading is different. I don't rage trade why you shouldn't. I rage trade because I just love to trade. So my rage trading is not necessarily about a player performing badly, which is what you shouldn't do. My rage trading is more because it's almost like cocaine for me, rage trading, or trading is. Trading for me just feels so good. I've got to use it all.
I think a couple of times last year you said you did it in your sleep.
I did. There was there was a point last year. I didn't exactly sleep trade, but I woke up at about 2:00 in the morning, and in a very hallucinogenic state, I traded 2 players. And now this was in the middle of the round. Now, guys, one other thing, you don't have to trade before a round starts. You can trade. So in between games, the lockout opens again, and you can trade during the rounds.
And I will just add to that, because I got screwed by it a couple of times. keep an eye on the form guide for late injuries and things like that, because there was a few times where I got screwed over where I had players get dropped 20 minutes before kickoff and things like that.
Yep.
So make sure you keep an eye on what the latest news is.
Yeah. Now, one thing is, before a round starts, if you make a trade, you can reverse them. There's a tab in the team selector where you can reverse trades. Once a round has started, if you make a trade in between games, you cannot reverse it. So this one, I'm pretty sure it was a Friday night. We'd had the Friday night matches, and I woke up about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, bleary-eyed, hallucinogenic, in bed, rolled over to my phone, and Supercoach opened up, and I made a couple of trades. And I remember waking up the next morning, and it was, I was waking up for work, working Saturdays. I was waking up at about sort of 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I remember thinking to myself, did I dream that? Was that real? Because I couldn't remember why I did it. I couldn't remember the influence behind it. But sure enough, I opened up my Supercoach app, and there it was. I'd made those trades, basically sleep traded. So, yeah. Another round. We're going to continue the team preview episodes. We'll see those in the next couple of days as well. We'll get this one up as quick as possible, and we'll see you all next episode. Hey guys, Joshy here. Thanks very much for joining us for another episode of BJ on Game Day. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell on YouTube for all your notifications. If you do want to follow us on Facebook, you can find us there at BJ on Game Day, and on Twitter we're at BJ on Game Day as well. So guys, we'd really like your support with that. Follow us so we can know you guys are enjoying the content. Thanks very much.